Hello, everybody. I would like to welcome you to our special training today. I'm just going to put in a note here. Just to see if the sound and the system are working well. So I'd like to welcome you to this special training, 3 steps you must take to finish your thesis, even if you can't stand writing. And, if you can hear me, just shout out a hello. Let me know where you're calling in from. I always love to see, what an international audience we have. So if you can hear me, just please put in a hello in the chat box, where you're calling from. I can already see Paul. He says he can hear. So I always want to make sure that the technology is working so that I can deliver you the best training possible. So if you can hear me, just say, I can hear you. Just put that in the chat box. And I'm going to just say hello to as many people as I can. So hello, Dale. Hello, Min, Dorette, Francisco, Joe, Pareva. Oh, this is wonderful. I'm so glad that the technology is working. So I'm going to give just a minute for everybody to log in here. So hello, Aurora. Hello, Jean. Hello, Nina from Australia. Oh, good morning. Yeah, Candace, Emma, Amina, Alessia, Catherine from South Africa. Well, welcome everybody. I'm just absolutely thrilled to have you here. So welcome to this training, 3 steps you must take to finish your thesis, even if you can't stand writing. I am Dora Farkas. I'm a thesis and career coach, and I'm the founder of the Finish Your Thesis Academy. Just in case if you're wondering whether this is the right training for you, I want to assure you that you're in the right place if you're working on your master's or your PhD thesis and you want to break out of that cycle of overwhelm and procrastination, if you want to be focused and motivated to work on your thesis, if you want to avoid mistakes that keep you stuck in graduate school for an extra 1 to 2 years, and most importantly, if you want to finish your thesis as quickly as possible. If you can relate to any of these, then this is definitely the right training for you. And I just want to say that I really honor your commitment to finish your thesis. I know that you're here and you took time out of your day. Perhaps this is your lunch break. Maybe it's really early in the morning for you or really late at night. And I know that your time is really valuable and I just really honor you for being here. I don't take your time for granted, so I'm going to deliver you the best possible presentation. Now, I know that writing your thesis can be a really lonely process, and it's tough to work when you have self-doubt or when you're feeling stuck. And it's easy to lose your confidence and wonder, is it worth finishing your thesis? And how can you get your thesis done? All of these self-doubts are a normal part of graduate school. I want to give you just a really brief background about myself so that you know that I've been where you are right now. So I got my PhD in biological engineering from MIT. I was then a postdoctoral fellow at Tufts Medical School. I continued my career as a senior scientist in the pharmaceutical industry. I'm a trained life thesis and career coach, and I'm the founder of the Finish Your Thesis Academy. And actually, Stephanie from my team is also on the call here, so she might be answering some of the questions and moderating the chat box. So what I would like you to remember is that even if you're feeling stuck or behind right now, that does not mean that you cannot finish your thesis. Because really small changes in your daily routine can make a really big impact on your overall progress. In fact, it's usually the small changes that make the biggest impact because those are the ones that can be sustained over the long run. So I want to share with you my story from graduate school to show you how the small changes that you can make right now can make a really big impact for you. So after about 6 years of graduate school, I felt really stuck because I had a really challenging research topic and my data was not reproducible or publishable. And my 3 committee members all had different requirements. And on top of that, I had multiple health challenges because of the stress that I was under. So I was really losing confidence in myself that I would finish my thesis. But then at one meeting, my committee chair had in the moment decision, and he let me graduate. He said, if you write this up by the end of the semester, we'll let you pass. The problem was that I had less than 3 weeks until the deadline, and I still had over 100 pages to write. So you can imagine that it was really tough to stay focused and to write under the time pressure. So I really wasn't sure if I was going to finish or if I would need to drop out. I knew I couldn't work more hours. I mean, there just weren't more hours in the day. And also, because of my health conditions, it was limited how many hours I could work. So I couldn't work more hours. The only thing that I could do was to create a new structure for my days, was to change the way that I worked. And the changes that I implemented were actually quite subtle. So first, I set specific goals for my day and also for the breaks that I took from my work. And I prioritized thesis writing, and I underline writing because I prioritize writing over checking my email and even over reading articles. And I'm going to explain that why later on in the training. I also eliminated or at least reduced as many chores as possible, not related to my thesis. And very important, not many people do this, but this is really important, which is that I evaluated my progress on my thesis every day. And I will also explain how this works later in the training. So these tiny shifts in my habits led to more progress in 3 weeks than I had made in 6 months. And that's not an exaggeration. So I handed in my thesis 3 weeks later, and I defended on time. Within a year, I had 3 first author publications based on my research in graduate school in peer-reviewed journals. And when I was a postdoctoral fellow, I published 5 more papers in peer-reviewed journals, and all of this while raising a family with 2 young daughters. The reason that I mention this is that I know that you also have a lot of time commitments. Perhaps you're working, maybe you have a family to take care of, and you're just really short on time. And I want to let you know that even if you don't have a lot of time for your thesis, that doesn't mean that you cannot finish it. Because I've seen it over and over again in my programs that people with full-time jobs and young children are able to finish their thesis. So the key to finishing your thesis is not to work more hours, but to create more structure. So since 2009, I have trained thousands of graduate students through private coaching, online programs, and live events. And today I'm going to be sharing with you the most important strategies that you can also implement to finish your thesis. So this is what we're going to cover today. So first, we're going to talk about how you get into the cycle of burnout and procrastination and what is really holding you back from thesis writing. Then we're going to discuss the 3 steps that you must take to finish your thesis. And all of my students who have finished their thesis took these 3 steps. So this is really important. And then at the end of the training, I will share with you an opportunity to work with me directly on your thesis, but only after I have delivered you tremendous value in this training and only if it is okay with you. So if you would like to hear about this opportunity to work with me directly on your thesis, please type yes into the chat box and we're going to get started right away. So again, if you'd like to learn more about this opportunity to work with me directly on your thesis, type yes into the chat box. And I'm going to take a quick water break. All right, I'm seeing a lot of yeses here. I'm just really impressed by your enthusiasm. So I'm going to have a couple of Q&A breaks during the training, and I'm also going to have one at the end. So if you have any questions about anything that I'm covering, please put that into the chat box, and I will get to it during the Q&A breaks. So let's get started with how you get stuck in that vicious cycle of burnout and procrastination. So something that I learned after I graduated is that 50% of doctoral students never finish their thesis. And even worse, many students drop out after spending many years and thousands of dollars on graduate school. So as you can imagine, this high dropout rate is really a problem for graduate schools. So the Council of Graduate Schools conducted a 7-year PhD completion project to try to determine why so many students drop out of graduate school. So when they looked at the academic performance, they found out that there's no significant difference between the students who finish their thesis and those who drop out. So it's not that the students who finish are smarter than those who drop out. There are some other reasons. So they decided to interview the students who decided to leave graduate school. And what they found was that the main reasons for the high attrition rate included time management problems, loss of motivation or focus over the years, conflicts with your thesis supervisor where you feel like they're not letting you graduate. But the most common reason that students left graduate school or were at least really unhappy in graduate school is that feeling of isolation, feeling like you're alone in this. And you might also be wondering why you're feeling stuck when you are putting in the hours into your thesis. So I would like to introduce you to the cycle of burnout and procrastination, or better yet, explain how we get stuck in it, because I'm sure that this will sound very familiar. So I will show you how we get stuck in this cycle. So as academics, we have really high ambitions. We are high achievers. So the cycle begins with us setting an ambitious goal, and we work long hours until we feel exhausted or maybe even burnt out. And as a result of that, we start procrastinating because we don't have energy. So when you procrastinate, then you might fall behind on your milestones, your goals, maybe you have conflicts with your supervisor. So then you're starting to feel really guilty. So after some time, you set another ambitious goal. Maybe this time it's even more ambitious than the previous one because you want to show your supervisor that you really can do this, or maybe you have less time now to finish what you wanted to finish. So again, you work long hours until you burn out and until you start procrastinating. And once again, you fall behind on your goals and your milestones. So each time that you go through this cycle, you feel more and more exhausted and more frustrated, and you're wondering why you're feeling behind and why you're feeling burnt out when you're putting in all these hours. So as you can see, unless you create structure, it's nearly impossible to escape the cycle of burnout and procrastination. And even if you do have time to work on your thesis, if you don't create structure around that time, it's really going to be impossible to make a significant amount of progress. Because when you sit down to write, you might ask yourself questions such as, do you know enough to write, or should you read more? Which section of your thesis should you write first? Are you going in the right direction? And if you took a break from writing, where do you pick up again? So most students drop out because they do not have the structure and the academic writing skills to complete a graduate level thesis. So now I'm going to cover the 3 steps that you must take to finish your thesis. And as I said, all of my students who have finished their thesis took these exact 3 steps, so they're really, really important. So I'm going to take a water break and we're going to get right to step number 1. So I'm going to have 2 Q&A breaks. So if you have any questions about anything that I cover, please put it in the chat box. So step number 1 is stop expecting the perfect thesis. I'm going to explain what this means. So I used to feel that no matter how hard I worked, my thesis was never good enough. And I thought that if my thesis was not perfect, then my committee would not allow me to graduate. And I think that perfectionism is a silent epidemic in graduate school. At almost any workshop that I give, somebody asks me, well, how do I overcome perfectionism? How do I know when my thesis is good enough? And I know that's a really tough dilemma when you're in an ultra-competitive environment like graduate school. Now, the issue with perfectionism is that when you expect your thesis to be perfect, it actually keeps you stuck. And here is why. When you expect your thesis to be perfect, you don't feel ready to write because you always feel like you need to read more. You feel like you don't know enough, and maybe you need to read just one more paper. And you might beat yourself up if you make mistakes, or if you get negative or even constructive feedback from your supervisor. And you might spend a lot of time trying to correct every little detail or writing and rewriting the same paragraphs over and over again. And all of these add up to keeping yourself stuck. So even though your intention is to impress your committee and to create a really high quality thesis, you're actually keeping yourself stuck when you expect your thesis to be perfect. So now you're maybe thinking, well, how do you stop being a perfectionist so you can finish your thesis? What's important to remember is that academic writing is a process that can be learned. Nobody's born being a good writer. So I'm sure you've read journal articles or books that you thought were really well written, and perhaps you thought, well, I don't know if I could ever write anything like that. But I can assure you that those journal articles and books went through many, many revisions and iterations before they were published. And in their earlier phases, they probably sounded awkward. So nobody's born being a good writer. There's stages of the academic writing process, and everybody can learn this particular process. So when you learn the process that your thesis has to go through, you can focus on the right things at each stage, which is going to save you a lot of time and energy. You can incorporate feedback from your supervisor so that you're on the same page about what you need to do in order to graduate. And most importantly, you can turn your messy draft into a finished thesis and graduate. So remember that there is no perfect thesis. No matter how much you work, you will always be asked to make revisions. And you've probably experienced this firsthand, that no matter how hard you work, your supervisor always had comments to make. But once you learn the process of academic writing, you can complete a thesis that your committee will approve because it meets their requirements. So to summarize, step number 1 is stop expecting the perfect thesis and to aim for a finished thesis. So I'm going to take a quick water break and look at the chat box here. Okay, so at the moment, I don't see too many questions here, but I see we have some new people who have joined the webinar. I'd like to welcome you. So I'm going to move on to step number 2, and I'm going to have another Q&A break after step number 2, and then one at the end of the training. So one of the things that you might be wondering is, well, how do you finish your thesis so that you can graduate? I just told you that to stop expecting the perfect thesis and to aim for a finished thesis, but how do you actually finish your thesis? And the answer is to start a daily writing routine. Now, I know that the idea of a daily writing routine sounds really scary, maybe even impossible. But writing daily does not have to be as time-consuming or as complex as you might think. And as I mentioned at the beginning, all of my students who have finished their thesis implemented all 3 of these steps when they were close to handing in their thesis, as in their last semester. So here are some things about implementing a daily writing routine that you may not have heard previously. So writing every day does not mean that you have to write a lot every day, because progress is not linear. On some days, you're only going to make small hops, and on other days, you're going to have big leaps in your progress. And when you write every day, it also doesn't mean that you have to write well every day. The purpose is to write every day, and your drafts are going to be messy, and that's okay, because you're going to have a lot of chances to revise later. Here's some other things that you may not have known about developing a daily writing routine. You really don't need a lot of time to get the benefits of daily writing. So if you're able to set aside just 15 minutes daily during the week, that's really going to help you with making the most out of the big blocks of time that you might have on the weekends or on other days when you have a smaller workload. And the other thing is that having one big block of time over the weekend or once or twice a week is usually not enough. Because if you only write once or twice a week, you're not going to remember your train of thought from your previous writing session. So if you're able to set aside just a little bit of time to write every day, that's going to help you to keep your train of thought, and it's going to make those big writing blocks a lot more productive. So how can you write daily if you don't know what to write? I know that when you're working on a thesis, the main feeling is overwhelmed. There's just so much to do. So if you're trying to implement a daily writing routine, how can you write daily if you're not sure how to get started or which section to start writing? So really the hardest part about writing is the beginning, is that phase where you're starting to write. So the questions that you might ask yourself are, what section should you begin with? And is it even worth starting if you only have 30 minutes? Can you write if you feel like you need to read more? That's actually one of the biggest things that holds students back from writing, is that they feel like they need to just keep reading because they don't know enough. And on some days, you just don't feel like writing. So if you don't feel like writing, is it worth writing? But the truth is that most writers, even professors who write lots of papers and best-selling authors, they don't feel like writing at least 95% of the time, but they do it anyway, no matter how they feel. And this was a new concept to me, is this idea of writing, even if I was not in the mood or I did not feel like it, but it's actually quite effective. Because when you write daily, the quality of your writing will improve automatically. So when you write every day, you get comfortable with the process of writing, even when you don't feel like writing. And you get comfortable with very messy drafts. And actually, when you start writing every day, you get ideas and insights that you didn't expect to come to you. So the more you write, the more confident you will feel, and the sooner you will finish your thesis. And having this confidence in yourself is really a big portion of being able to finish your thesis. So step number 2 is to write daily, no matter how you feel. So we're going to get into step number 3 in just a second, but I'm going to look at the chat box here. Okay, so okay, so I see that some people had issues with connectivity. So if you could just all take a moment and just type in a yes. So if you can hear me and if you can see my screen, just say, I can hear you. Just type it into the chat box so that I know, because I want to make sure that you're able to hear the presentation. So I can take just a quick second here. I actually got a lot of questions here that I'm going to answer. But if you didn't have a question, just please type, I can hear you, into the chat box so that I know that it's working for you. So a question from Maria: why does it get harder to get unstuck the longer you are stuck? This is true for me. I don't know about others. It's definitely true for everybody. So the longer that you are stuck, the harder you think it is to get unstuck. But actually the process is the same. So it's really just in your mind that you think, oh, I've been stuck for so long. But I've seen it all the time in my programs that people who have been stuck for years, and I'm talking a lot of years, are able to start writing again. The process is the same. Hussam says, I read a lot of papers, but I don't know how to turn these papers to something in my own words. How to come over this? That's going to come with writing a lot. So you need to find your own voice. And that's really hard to do if you're going straight from reading articles into writing. The only way you can do it is just to summarize it first in your own words as best as you can, and then refine it. So the more that you refine it, the better it's going to sound. Caitlin says, hi, Dora. Any tips for implementing daily writing when I have a demanding job intellectually? Yes, Caitlin, we have a lot of people in our programs who have full-time jobs and time commitments with their families. And so really the best way to do it is to set a schedule for yourself, so at least you don't have to think about when you're going to do your daily writing. And the benefit is that if you know when you're going to write, then you can really use that time to get laser focused. Even if it's just 15, 30 minutes, I have seen people make tremendous progress. And then when they have that longer time block, maybe on the weekend, they actually make a lot more progress because of the little time that they put in during the week. Okay, so I see a lot of people say they can hear me. Catherine says, what if you still have experimental work to complete? Well, Catherine, I don't know, maybe you were here at the beginning when I was explaining that I only had 3 weeks to write up my thesis. Believe it or not, I also had to do some experiments during that time. And so really, you just have to do it as best as you can. So in my case, what I did was that, because of the nature of the experiments, they have their own timeline. So I plan my writing around the experiments. It's not something that I recommend if you don't have to do it. So usually I recommend to do writing and experimental work on different days. So if you're able to separate it into different days, then that's probably the best way to go. But if you don't have that option, then you can work around it. I have seen people in the experimental sciences. Natalia says, for me, it's very hard to write when I have to add citations because I always get lost at reading back my notes and not writing. Yes, I completely understand. And so, one of the things that you can do is take breaks from writing. That's one of the things that I instituted when I created more structure for myself, is to have these breaks. So when you take frequent breaks from your writing, that's going to prevent you from getting lost in either reading or writing your notes and getting lost in the literature. Alessia says, how do you write anyway if you can't look at your text anymore? So you just need to get comfortable with the idea that a draft is messy. So when you can't look at your text anymore, somebody once told me that if I can't look at my thesis anymore, it means that I'm probably pretty close to finishing. So that made me feel better. But on the other side of it, it is supposed to be messy. And when I handed it in to my supervisor, he actually had different comments than what I had thought he would have. So even though you might not be satisfied with it, if you give it to somebody else, maybe it doesn't have to be your supervisor, but other people are going to see different things. So I recommend that you get feedback from somebody else. Okay, Porava. I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly. How do you focus when you have kids and other distractions at home because you feel like 15 minutes won't be productive? The only way to experience it is to give yourself that experience of 15 minutes. For most people, the morning is the best when you really are not going to be interrupted. If it's not at home, then at the coffee shop, let's say. But if you're able to have that experience of 15 minutes of distraction-free writing, you will see how much you can get done. It is really just really surprising. Saeed, is the thesis proposal grammar different to the final thesis? Well, the grammar is the same, but the requirements are always different for the proposal and the thesis itself. Joe says, anybody write from home? Sometimes I find it difficult to get in work mode when I'm so close to so many distractions, especially in a technology-driven world. Any advice? Yes, a lot of people write from home. And anywhere you write from, Joe, you're going to experience a lot of distractions. So you need to do your best in terms of turning off your phone. There are some apps that will disconnect the internet for you or track what sites you go into. So there are a lot of apps. So really the best thing to do is just to figure out what you can control and what you cannot control, and to make a decision the day before about which distractions you're going to get rid of, because it's very hard to do in the moment. So my advice is to think about it in advance, what you can eliminate. Jamila says, I'm stuck on literature review, finding it hard to source information. So that's definitely a challenge. What I would suggest that you do is you find 1 or 2 important papers and to look at the citations. And that's going to help you to find other papers and just to see what the most important sources are for you. Saeed says, has a comment about the supervisor not cooperating. So if your supervisor is not cooperating, then have a meeting with your supervisor and find out what their reasons are. Are they just not giving it back to you because they're so busy, or do they disagree with you? It's really important to hear your supervisor out and to remove all your emotions. I mean, I recognize that you're angry, you're impatient. I understand all of that. But if you're able to remove your emotions from the meeting and really find out your reason why your supervisor is not cooperating, that can help you to get some cooperation going, even if not in one meeting, but definitely in a couple of meetings. With kids, maybe do a babysitting swap with a friend so you can have a 2-hour block at a cafe or library to write. Absolutely, Polly. A lot of people do that. Deb said, how do you keep your research current if you have to update every year because you haven't moved forward? Well, everybody has to keep their research current, even if they are moving forward. It's just the nature of research. So you can get some notifications, RSS feeds, and so forth that will help you to know when papers in your field are published, so that you can get notifications on what the most up-to-date papers are. And in fact, that's something that I highly recommend. So Bernadette says, I read too much for literature review and summarizing becomes difficult. Perhaps a procrastination tactic. When is enough reading enough? Bernadette, if something tells you that you've read enough, you probably have. So let me just look here. Saeed says, could I change my supervisor at the end of my thesis when I'm at the stage of results chapter? Yes, Saeed, I have known people who have changed their supervisors, or at the very least, they had another person step in, such as a dean or the department chair, even in their last semester. So it does happen. Okay. So I'm going to take a quick water break and we're going to go to step number 3. Okay, so let's say you develop a daily writing routine, and now your question might be, how do you know you're going in the right direction? So that brings us to step number 3, which is measure progress until you finish your thesis. This might be a surprising step. It's not something that people told me when I was in graduate school. So this is a comic from PhD Comics. This is one of the main characters, and he sits down to write his thesis, and he's just, thinking, and finally he says, maybe I'll start with the acknowledgments. And I know people who spent a lot of time on the acknowledgments, but as you know, that's not going to bring you closer to a finished thesis. So it feels very discouraging if you are writing, but you're not sure you're going in the right direction. So you may be feeling stuck right now if you think that your progress is too slow, if you don't know what you need to be working on right now, if you feel like your thesis isn't good enough, or if you don't have that confidence in yourself that you can finish. So Peter Drucker, who's an author and a personal consultant, had this really great quote, which is, you can't manage what you don't measure. And I know people don't think about managing their thesis, but the reality is that you have to manage your thesis. You have to know when the deadlines are if you want to meet them. And the only way that you can manage your thesis is if you're able to measure your progress somehow. So how can you measure progress on your thesis? So, it's usually not taught in graduate school, but there are a couple of different things that you can do to measure your progress. So one thing that you can do, especially if you're just starting out with writing, is to look at how many words did you write today. If you've already written a lot and you're doing editing or wrapping up different sections, you can ask yourself, which sections have you already completed? Which ones can you just cross off of your list? Also, let's say your supervisor asks you at the end of the day or at the end of the week, what tangible progress did you make today or this week? What answer would you be able to give in terms of tangible progress that you're making? It's also really important to evaluate whether your current writing routine is helping you to stay on track. So if you're spending a lot of time on your thesis, but it's during a time of day when you can't focus and you're not getting a lot of writing done, then you know that something has to change. So it's really important to evaluate whether what you're doing right now is helping you to stay on track. So when you're able to measure progress on your thesis, it's really powerful because you realize what it is that you need to be working on right now. You appreciate how much you have already completed. That's going to give you confidence about your progress, and it's going to give you the confidence to write more. And when you write more, you are going to write better. So the more progress you notice, the more motivated you will be to write and finish your thesis. So here are some tips to measure and manage progress on your thesis. So first, ask yourself, at what stage of the academic writing process is each chapter? Are you just beginning to write? Are you editing? Are you revising based on comments from your supervisor? Or are you just polishing for the final submission? And what do you need to do to complete the individual chapters or sections? It's also really important to develop a daily writing routine that works for you, not for somebody else, but for you specifically, given your time commitments and given which time of day you work best. And also really important is to have accountability or a supportive community that's going to help you to stay on track with your thesis. I actually interviewed hundreds of PhDs for developing my programs, and joining a support community is the #1 advice that PhDs give to students. And this makes a lot of sense because when you join a supportive community, you discover how others have coped with challenges similar to yours. And that's going to help you to stay focused and accomplish the highest priorities for your thesis. So you're going to get the accountability to write, defend, and finish your thesis on time. So step #3 is to measure your progress until you finish your thesis. So remember, at the beginning, I told you that I would share with you an opportunity to work with me directly on your thesis. But before we go there, I have a question for you. When you think about finishing your thesis, what excites you the most about it? What's the most exciting part about finishing your thesis? So after working with thousands of students over the last 10 years, I can tell you that a finished thesis will have a positive impact on every area of your life. So first, your relationships will improve. You're going to have better career opportunities. And most importantly, your health, your energy, and your confidence are going to improve because you will no longer have the burden of your thesis. So I know that, I want to show you how to implement what you learned today so you can optimize your academic writing and finish your thesis. So I want to introduce you to the Academic Writing Bootcamp, where you can crush writer's block and finish your thesis and your publications. And the purpose of the Academic Writing Bootcamp is to help you to go from feeling stuck and overwhelmed to feeling confident and consistently writing so that you can finally finish your thesis. So you might be wondering, what makes the Academic Writing Bootcamp unique and different from other writing clubs and communities? So the Academic Writing Bootcamp has step-by-step guidance for academic writing. So we have a core curriculum that you can access from any device that's going to help you to learn the process of academic writing step by step. It is also 3 weeks long, which is long enough to help you to develop a consistent writing routine. And it helps you to write your thesis in the context of your everyday life. So as I was reading comments from the chat box, I saw that many of you have jobs or families to take care of, and it's really hard to find time to write your thesis. So the purpose of the Academic Writing Bootcamp is to help you to write your thesis in the context of your everyday life and your responsibilities. We also provide accountability and structure through our supportive community, and you get access to a private, confidential, safe online community 24/7. And we actually have people in all different time zones. So no matter where you are in the world, when you post a comment, you're probably going to get an answer within a few hours. So I want to share with you what some successful professionals have said about the Academic Writing Bootcamp. So Jessamine Price is a writing coach, and she was also the winner of the Best Thesis Award when she graduated. And here's what she said. Dora's program will help you get on the right track with your thesis. Dora knows how to keep people accountable, but accountable for realistic goals, not the impossible demands we place on ourselves as researchers. And Michael Smith, who's an author and personal and professional coach, said that I wish that I had access to this type of material when I completed my dissertation, as it includes everything I could have possibly needed. And critically, the material is road tested and proven to work. I just want to share with you 2 more stories from successful students. The first one is from Kwong Evans-Long, who's an assistant professor in the United Kingdom. And Kwong said, "One of my fears before joining Dora's program was that I would not be able to graduate on time. I felt stressed, and this led to a lack of motivation. After I started the program, I became more productive and I learned to focus on the tasks that were helping me to finish my thesis." And Kwong got not just one, but actually 2 offers for faculty positions. So he had a really successful career. So Adrienne Offenbecker is a PhD candidate at the University of Calgary in Canada. And she said, "As a PhD candidate in my final year, I have attended numerous workshops on procrastination, productivity, writer's block, and nothing seemed to stick. Dora's strategies are simple and they truly work. I have written more since participating in her program than I had in the past 6 months before it." So when will this academic writing bootcamp take place? So here are the dates of the academic writing bootcamp. So the core academic writing bootcamp is 3 weeks long between February 25th and March 17th. And I know that you're busy and that you have many commitments. So you have the option of participating in 1, 2, or all 3 weeks, and you will get the benefit of the bootcamp as long as you can commit to 1 full week. And I also want to make sure that you get support after you finish the bootcamp. So we have 3 bonus bootcamp weeks between March 25th and April 15th. And once again, you have the option to participate in all 3 bonus bootcamp weeks or just the 1 or 2 that fit your schedule. So really, you can get support for up to 6 weeks when you enroll in the bootcamp. So you might be wondering, how does the bootcamp help you to finish your thesis? And it really comes down to 3 things. The first one is that it helps you to learn the academic writing process using step-by-step strategies that will help you to write more efficiently. Second is that it helps you with accountability and structure. So you're going to have the opportunity to share your goals before each bootcamp week. We have a daily progress tracker on Google Docs, and we also have a community. And finally, you get daily support during bootcamp weeks from me and the other students. So you can ask any questions in our community to help you to work through challenges. So I'm just going to briefly summarize how the academic writing bootcamp will help you to learn the process of academic writing. So we have 3 main modules, and as soon as you enroll in the bootcamp, you get access to the first 2 modules. So module 1 is all about how to set yourself up for success, what to focus on depending on what stage of writing you're at, how you can develop a consistent daily writing routine, and what are some tips to ensure your daily writing success. I also included 2 bonuses here that I know will be really valuable for you. The first one is to create a personalized writing plan for you, depending on your schedule and your commitments. And the second bonus I know will also be really valuable based on the comments I saw in the chat box, which is how to review the literature without getting overwhelmed. So this is really going to help you with writing and reviewing the literature. So module 2 is all about how to make the most progress during bootcamp weeks. So I will show you how to prepare for the bootcamp weeks themselves, how to write when you feel like you can't, or you're really not in the mood to write, or you're feeling really, really stuck, how to stay focused despite interruptions and distractions. And I also have a bonus there on how to use Evernote and OneNote to accelerate your writing. So you may not be familiar with these tools, and they're really, really great to help you to organize your notes and to help you to write more efficiently. And finally, module 3 is all about post-bootcamp success. How can you make sure that you maintain your momentum in writing so that you can finish your thesis? So we're going to discuss how you can stay accountable to yourself and others. What can you do if you want to quit? And how can you deal with revision requests from your supervisor? And I also included a bonus here, which is tips for your proposal or thesis defense. This is going to be really helpful for you, especially if you have a committee meeting coming up or you have a meeting with just your supervisor. Now, I also have a limited time bonus, which is a small group coaching program. This includes 6 live question and answer training calls with me, and we're going to have one every week before a bootcamp week. So you can submit questions to me in advance, and I will answer these questions anonymously during each training. And so all the group calls will be recorded, so you can listen to them anytime. Even if you've attended them live, you can go back to it if you need some inspiration. So I want to summarize everything that you get when you join the Academic Writing Bootcamp, because I know that I gave you a lot of information. And in parentheses, I have the value of everything if we were to offer these separately. So you get the 3-week intensive bootcamp, which includes daily support on our private confidential Facebook community, and also access to our daily progress tracker and email support. You also get the training videos to help you to prepare for bootcamp. You get the 3 bonus modules, the 3 bonus bootcamp weeks, and we also have some spots on our 6 bonus question and answer group coaching sessions. Now, the total value of everything is over $2,000. But I want to make sure that if you are really committed to finishing your thesis, then this program can be accessible to you. So the special that we're offering this semester is only $297. But I know that you're on this webinar and you're really motivated to finish your thesis. So I want to offer you an additional bonus just for being on this webinar. So if you enroll in the bootcamp while you're still on this webinar, I would like to offer you a one-on-one personal strategy session with me, where we're going to develop a personalized plan for you to help you to finish your thesis. Now, the value of this strategy session is $350. So even if that's the only thing that you get, that's still more than your investment, but you also get access to 6 bootcamp weeks, all of our training modules, all of the bonuses, and the community. So if you look on the right side of your screen, you're going to see a blue button that says click here to learn more. So when you click on that blue button, that's going to open up a new window, and that's going to take you to the program information page, where you're going to get all the details about the program and how to enroll. So when you enroll in the program while you're still on this webinar, I'm going to send you a link to my calendar so you can reserve a time that works for you, where we're going to have this one-on-one call to help you to develop a personalized plan to finish your thesis. So in case the link doesn't work for you, you can also go to finishyourthesis.com/bootcamp. That's also going to take you to the program information page. Now, I know that you showed up today because you made a decision to finish your thesis. And I would be honored to support you. So you can continue working on your own, or you can work with me and finish your thesis more efficiently. And these strategies work in any field. Now, I know that you may be wondering whether this is the right program for you, and I want to assure you that your success is my #1 priority. So I offer a 30-day money-back guarantee. So I would like to invite you to try the program and the community for 30 days. And if the course is not for you, you get a full refund, no questions asked. So really, you have nothing to lose except frustration, burnouts, writer's block, all of those sleepless nights, and the opportunity to accelerate and finish your thesis more efficiently. So I know that you probably have questions, and I'm going to go to the chat box in just a minute, but I want to address the most frequently asked questions. So one question that I get is, what if you feel that you're not ready to write? So if you feel that you're not ready to write, but you know that you should be writing, then the bootcamp is definitely going to help you with that. Whether you haven't started writing or whether you're feeling stuck, the bootcamp will help you to pick up your momentum. Second question, what if you don't have time to write? So as I mentioned earlier, you actually don't need a lot of time to get the benefits of daily writing. If you can set aside just 15, 20 minutes a day, but even if you can only set aside 15 minutes a day, that's really going to go a long way to help you to make progress. And I've seen this with so many students who have full-time jobs and families, or who travel a lot, or who have to take care of family members. So you really don't need that much time on a daily basis. Next question, what if you don't want to spend time on a program? So the modules are really condensed. So the most time that you would spend on the modules is maybe 1 hour per module at the most. And we have 3 modules total. So really all of the investment that you make in listening to the training videos you're going to get back 2, 3, or 10-fold in terms of helping you save time in writing your thesis. Next question, what if you feel that you cannot afford the program? So I understand that it's an investment, and we do have a payment plan option where you can get started today for just $97. I also want you to remember that the investment in the program is not just an investment in your thesis, because writing skills are essential for any career that you go into. So whether you continue in academia or where you go to non-academic careers, or whether you want to publish papers, these skills are going to help you way beyond graduate school. So the investment that you're making today is not just for graduate school, but to learn the writing skills also for your career after graduate school. And the other question is, what if you are in a unique non-science field? So we've had students from over 40 different fields in our programs, and these strategies work in any field because really the strategies to help you to stay motivated to write, to help you to take notes, and incorporate those notes into your writing are the same regardless of what field you're in. So these strategies work in any field. So I'd like to remind you that the best thesis is a finished thesis. And if you enroll in the program while you're still on this webinar, you will get a bonus session with me. I'm going to send you a link to my calendar so you can reserve a time that works for you, where we're going to get to develop a personalized plan for you to finish your thesis. So I'm going to go to the chat box right now and answer any questions. Okay, I don't see a lot of questions here. So, wow, I'm just really impressed on how motivated you all are here. Okay, so I'm going to start from the top here. So Caroline says, do you get access to the community after the bootcamp weeks are over? So you definitely get access at least until May. So we haven't decided how to manage the community beyond that, but you will definitely get access to it until May. So I hope that answers your question. And you can definitely make contact with the students in the bootcamp. And we've had many people who made contact with each other. They met online through our community. Bernadette has a question about the payment plan. So you can start today for just $97, and the payment plan is 4 payments, 4 monthly payments. So you're going to pay $97 a month for 4 months. Okay, Parava says, I'm not writing my thesis right now. Is this still good for me? So the academic writing bootcamp is good if you're doing some kind of writing. So it doesn't have to be your thesis. Some people write their proposal, publication, maybe even something for their course, but it really is focused on writing. So this course is a good fit for you if you're going to be doing intensive writing during the months of February, March, and April. Carolyn says, do you have tips for getting writing done when you have major procrastination issues and executive dysfunction? So everybody in our community says that they have major procrastination issues. And that's really what one of the things that this program focuses on, is how to help you to get into that rhythm of daily writing. I'm not sure what you mean by executive dysfunction. I don't know if you're referring to decision making, but I definitely do address how to reduce the number of decisions that you have to make, which is going to help you to save energy that you can then spend on thesis writing. Jennifer Lee, can we enroll in these boot camps as a group of about 10 people? You know, nobody asked me that question. So Jennifer, just send me an email to dora@finishyourthesis.com if you want to enroll as a group. So my email is dora@finishyourthesis.com. Saeed, how to prepare for the defense of my thesis? What is the most questionable areas to prepare for thesis and the most commonly asked questions? So that's actually in module 3. And it really comes down to making sure that you can demonstrate that you have a good understanding of the material and that you carried out this research in a conscientious manner. Okay, so, all right, so let me So Alessia says, have you indeed finished your dissertation in 3 weeks from scratch? Tell about it, please. So it wasn't from scratch in the sense that I already had all of my data, but I really didn't do much of the writing because I didn't know about the timeline at that point. It was an in-the-moment decision from my committee chair. So I did write over 100 pages in about 3 weeks. And then later on, I actually met a PhD. This was way after I graduated. But he wrote his thesis from scratch in about 2 weeks. So he also had all of his data. So we're not talking about doing everything in just a few weeks, but just the writing itself. Okay, so let me go back to the top here. And so Colleen says, yes, Colleen, you're getting a different price here. And that's because there is VAT included depending on what country you're located in. So that's not related to us. That's just VAT related to which country you're paying from. So that's what it's related to. Philip says, so does this program work for social sciences? Absolutely. We have many students from social sciences, humanities, and also education. Emma, does the program connect you with others in similar fields? For instance, I am in the humanities. Yes, so when you join the community, the first thing that you can do is introduce yourself, what field you're in, what stage you're in, and the community is incredibly supportive. So you're probably going to, if you tell people, I want to connect with others who are in the same field, you're probably going to get some people who are willing to connect with you. However, having said that, we've had people who are accountability buddies who are not in the same field, and it still worked really well. But most likely you can find people who are in your field. So thank you, Stephanie, for answering the question. You do save 30% if you pay in full. And we've had people in over 40 different fields. So these strategies work in any field of study. So I'm going to hang on here for a few more minutes just to make sure that I can answer any questions that you have. And also, if you enroll in the bootcamp while you're still on this webinar, then you're going to get a link to my calendar to schedule the one-on-one bonus session with me. Okay, so we have a couple of more questions here. Hussam says, how can I know that I have enough data or read enough papers? So the reality is that it's almost never too early to start writing. Even if you don't have all of your data or you feel like you didn't read enough papers, the only way to know what data to collect or which papers you need to read is to actually start writing, because it's only through the process of writing that you're going to find out where the gaps are. So I know the feeling of not having enough data or feeling like you don't know enough, but as uncomfortable as that sounds, that is really the only way to know which data you need to collect and which papers to read. So it's never too early to start writing. In fact, that's probably going to save you time for the data collection and help you to collect the right kind of data and read the right papers. Saeed says, I'm doing thesis in the field of education. Yes, Saeed, we had so many people in my programs in education, so I'm glad to hear that you're in that field. Joe says, what if my confidence issues stem from a lack of confidence with my results? When I see that data doesn't make sense, I panic. I don't know what to do, especially if it's data that I truly need to work out. Yes, actually, Joe, many people have this issue of, do you really have confidence in the results that you collected? What if you don't believe in your own data? And I know that's really uncomfortable, and especially if you feel like you really need this data to work out, otherwise nothing makes sense. So, the way that people deal with this is to detach from the data itself. I mean, the data is what it is. All you need to do is have confidence in your methods that you did it correctly. But then the data is what it is. And I can tell you that most of the time, the story of your thesis is not going to be what you initially thought it would be. It's going to be a slightly different story. Your data is going to turn out differently than what you had expected. So many times your research questions are going to change as you write up your thesis. And that's really where the power of writing comes in, is when you start writing it up. That's when you start to notice all of the gaps. And that's when some research questions will come to you where your data will fit in. So many times when your data doesn't work out the way you wanted it to work out, you need to ask a different question. And I know that's backwards, but the reality is that that's usually what ends up happening, is that because of the way your data turns out, you need to slightly adjust your research questions in order to graduate. So Joe, I hope that answers your question. Idarbek, hope I'm pronouncing it correctly. How to make content? I mean, how to write a plan. So are you referring to the content of your thesis or the plan for writing your thesis? So for the content, you just need to write. And that's why the Academic Writing Bootcamp has the core modules to help you with the process of academic writing. It's going to help you to take your draft through the different stages of academic writing. So clarify the question that it is about the content of the thesis. Yes. So it really comes down to implementing the process of academic writing and taking your draft through the different stages of academic writing. So your chapter is going to look very different when you start to write it versus when you begin to edit it, versus when you implement revisions, versus when you're just polishing it before submitting it to your university. So you just have to take it through the different stages. Pareva says, what is the layout schedule of the bootcamp, day, time, so I know what are my commitments? So the way the bootcamp works is that it's a combination of working on your own timeline, and also having accountability with the community. And the way that works is that you make a commitment. You announce what goals you're going to achieve that week. So we have a daily progress tracker, and we also have the community where people announce or set a goal for the end of the week. And then you create your own schedule. So one of the bonuses in Module 1 is creating your personalized writing plan. So using this personalized writing plan, you can lay out a schedule that works for you. And I know that it's different for everyone, which is why I take you through the process of creating your own schedule. So clearly, if you want to make more progress on your thesis, you have to do something differently. You have to change your habits at least slightly, adjust some things. So I take you through the process of creating a schedule that works for you, of getting help from people. And those could be people at your work. They could be people at home who are supporting you. So I take you through the process of creating that schedule for yourself to help you to make time for writing every day, because those little blocks of time really do add up. And the best part is that when you do put in that writing time, you feel great for the rest of the day, because you feel like, okay, I put in my writing at the beginning of the day. I haven't done this in a while. So I hope that answers your question, Parava. Okay, Colleen says, I don't see your calendar. So the calendar, so I announced the dates of the bootcamp a little bit earlier. So we're going to begin on February 25th, and then it's going to go on for 3 weeks until, I believe, the 17th of March. And then we're going to take a 1-week break. And then we're going to pick up again on the 25th of March and for another 3 weeks. And those are the bonus bootcamp weeks. And as I said, if you can commit to 1 full week, you're going to get the benefits of the bootcamp. So Colleen, I hope that answers your question. And really the reason that you get the benefit if you commit to a full week of the bootcamp is that the bootcamp is structured as a weekly flow. Oh, Colleen says, no, I don't, that didn't answer your question. So Colleen, maybe you could clarify your question. So if you're not referring to the bootcamp schedule, perhaps you can clarify that question. Okay, my calendar. Okay, so I'm gonna send you the link. So Colleen, did you enroll in the program? I'm glad to have you here. So after I wrap up this webinar, probably tomorrow, I'm gonna send out an email to everybody who enrolled during the time that they were on this webinar. So I'm going to send you that link tomorrow, and then you can pick the time. So thank you for asking that question. You will get the link tomorrow, and also you're going to get a preparations, a form, so with some questions to help you get the most from our session. Joe says, how long do we have to enroll? So if you go to finishyourthesis.com/bootcamp, that's going to tell you when enrollment closes. It's the end of Friday. If you would like the bonus session with me, then if you enroll while you're still on this webinar, I will send you that link tomorrow. Nadia says, what is the preparation for the bootcamp in terms of the work that we need to have done? So there's no preparation at all. It doesn't matter what stage you're in, as long as you plan on doing a lot of writing during the next couple of months. So as long as you want to do a lot of writing, you don't need to have any preparation. We've had people in the bootcamp who haven't done any writing in years, and this is what helped them to get unstuck. So Nadia, I hope that answers your question. So welcome, Colleen. Welcome, Ashwini. I'm so glad that you have enrolled. I'm really honored to support you. And I will send you all of the information tomorrow. So I'm going to hang out here for another couple of minutes just to make sure that I can answer any questions that you have live. And I also, again, want to thank you for taking time out of your day to join me on this training here. I know that sometimes it's just really tough to know what it is that you need to do to finish your thesis. And actually, we have a couple more questions here. Paul says, any resources for looking for industry jobs while writing? So that's actually not part of the curriculum. However, when we have the small group coaching sessions, you can submit questions about anything related to thesis writing or the job search. And I do help people with finding jobs in industry. So if you want to submit questions to the group coaching or submit questions to the community or directly to me, Paul, then you can do that and I can direct you to resources. Shwini says, I work full-time. Do I need to be present online during the boot camp? So the only live time during the boot camp is when we have the group coaching sessions. Those are recorded. So if you're not present during that time, you can listen to it later. So this really does work for people who are working full-time. Okay, so Martha says, I'm very happy I participated in this excellent webinar. You are most welcome, Martha. Saeed says, thank you very much. Parava says, I'm excited. I'm excited too, Parava. Yeah, so I know how busy everybody is. Everybody has different commitments. And so that's why I designed this in a way that you get the benefits of accountability and structure, even if you're working full-time. Yes, Ashwini says, also watching kids and working full-time, stuck on thesis. I'm happy I joined. Yes, Ashwini, you're going to find that you're going to get a lot of support. And since you enrolled while you're on the webinar, I will send you the link tomorrow. And we're going to talk about your specific situation during the call to make sure that you can make time for yourself and for your thesis to finishing. Joe says, I'm just consulting my partner to see about joining the program. All right, well, Joe, I hope that works out for you. I mean, you asked some really excellent questions during the training here, so I would really be honored to support you. Patrick says, thank you. I'm currently working full-time and teach at 2 universities. It's so interesting that you mentioned that because we've had some students before who were also teaching at universities and they were writing their thesis at the same time. So, it can happen for different reasons. Some people get a job offer before they even finish their thesis, and then they have to finish their thesis while they're teaching. And other people are able to get a position that doesn't require a PhD. However, they would like to get a PhD to get better opportunities for teaching. So yes, we've had that situation, Patrick. And I know that's a big time commitment, working full-time and teaching at 2 universities. Joe says, if I stay on the webinar page, does that still qualify for the bonus session? So Joe, if you decide to enroll in the next few minutes, just send me an email. I will remember you because you asked such excellent questions. So just send me an email to Dora@finishyourthesis.com. And I will send you the link as well. Patrick says, sleep is on my list after I earn my PhD. Absolutely. And you know, the thing is that many times, you know, if you're able to adjust your schedule even by just a little bit and you get a little bit more sleep, and I'm talking about an extra 15 or 30 minutes, that also makes a really big difference in your productivity. Joe says, I should know within a few minutes. That's excellent. So, so Joe, as I said, you know, just write me an email directly, and then I will remember to include you when I send out the link to my calendar. Emma says, will you be sending us a link to replay this webinar to go back if we need to review something we missed? Is that possible? Yes, for a limited time, for a couple of days. So you will get an automated email, I believe in the next few hours. And so that's going to give you the replay of this webinar. But that's only going to be available for a few days. So if you are, if you want to watch the webinar, please do that in the next few days. Okay, so welcome, Ashwini. Kristen says, same here, Dora. I'm in Joe's situation. So Kristen, if you're consulting with somebody about joining the program, just remind me that you were on this webinar. You know, and if you do it, you know, in the next couple of minutes to an hour, just remind me, and I will make sure to include you in that email. Okay, so I know that we're about 12 minutes past the hour here. I wanted to make sure that I answer all of the questions, but I also respect your time a lot. So I'm going to wrap up here. If you have any question, you can reach me at dora@finishyourthesis.com or Stephanie at support@finishyourthesis.com. So thank you so much for your time. I really honor you for your commitment, and I look forward to supporting you to finish your thesis. Have a wonderful day.